On how can you limit defects in your code? This week, we cover logging, debugging, and tracing, and look at techniques and tools for software development, especially those used for JavaScript or MeteorJS. You can decide for yourself whether you want to try them out or stick to how you do things. No matter your decision, you're bound to learn something new in this episode. It's hard to believe that it's been half a year since we started this program. This is episode 26, and you're watching or listening to This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly news segment of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast, a resource for both new and veteran users that is hosted by MeteorJS community ambassadors who share information, events, activities, and other newsworthy items. I'm your host, Alim Gafar.
I am your co-host, Jan from Czechia. Hello.
Yeah, and I'm your other co-host, Jan from Germany. Hey.
Okay.
Let me... Oh, go ahead on.
With that, we're going to get right to the news.
All right. So I am starting the news with, you could probably say, a public service announcement. That would be one way to phrase this. This is a long-standing discussion we had in Meteor about where to store login tokens, all that stuff. Meteor stores it in local storage. There is good reasons for that. But to increase your security in that, you should make sure that you set your content security policy. And here we have from Michael Sharp a new addition, this time after consultation with ChatGPT about setting up the proper content security policy headers so that your local storage tokens are more secured. Definitely check out this entire article or forum thread once I scroll up completely. That gives you more of a background, and definitely make sure that you set up your content security policy either through the NPM package Helmet, which is a very favorite solution, or you can also use the content security packages, which I have on my to-do list to hopefully refresh in the future for Meteor. And unless Alim, Jan, you have something to add, then I am going to move on to the next section.
I have one thing to add. So if you're unsure about whether your content security policy is still lacking some other issues, there are plenty of CSP evaluators out there. So once your website runs and has the CSP in effect, then you can just open this one of these websites. For example, you can just look for the Google CSP validator, just as one example, and you enter your website, and then it creates a request to your website and analyzes the CSP and gives you some ideas of what's still problematic or lacking or whatever. So just as a tool on top. And the MDN, everybody should be familiar with that. The Mozilla web development documentation also has a quite big content about CSP, in case you want to learn more on that.
Yes, when implementing this, which you should, it will be a lot of you could say trial and error, trying to figure out how to properly set it. You can, especially if you have it more constricting rules. So sometimes I remember when I was setting this and trying it out, I set one policy and suddenly none of my images would load, and I had to figure out which domain they were from DNS were coming in, all that stuff. So it will take for a little bit of time to debug, especially if you want to have something a little bit more, could say, secure when it comes to the rules, and also depending on your requirements. And speaking of trial and error, we had an announcement here from the Meteor team, from Natural Code Owner, that they are looking, or he specifically is into modernizing Meteor bundle, which is a very meaty topic, and we'll pick up on it later in the program. But I would definitely encourage, especially if you have any issues with or experience, or if you have any issues with the load times in development and so on, or if you have experience with other bundlers and build tools, to check this out and give your feedback. As I said, we'll get more into the history of that and why it's probably time to change and what to change to what later in the program. Just note that this is something that's in discussion post Meteor 3 release.
I just want to sneak in here with it's getting closer with my predictions about tree shaking coming to Meteor. I just want to remind you that I did that prediction.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to get a chance to talk about other predictions or similar predictions that are related to this topic as we get down deep into the program.
Yep.
And so stick around because it's going to get hot.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
And there's some more interesting things happening with Meteor, right? Just recently we got some new support. Isn't that right, Küster?
Of course. So if you ever tried to run Meteor on a Raspberry Pi, you might be surprised that it worked not the way you wanted to, because there was no ARM support. It was possible with a very hard-working workaround, bundling your app, making it a Node app, and so on and so on. And then you had some sort of ARM support, but development was quite impossible. And now we finally got the ARM support done, even because Node had ARM support like ages ago already. And very big thanks to Felipe Oliveira, who worked on this PR since quite a while, and with the help of others like Laurie, who was also in our show recently and who often tried to, push things forward in this topic and tested a lot and as you can see, contributed a lot in order
to I'm trying to scroll down here to the nice graphics that's more visible than just all of text.
Yeah. So now it's finally done, and with next release you will be able with the next major release, because this is going to become Meteor 3. This is not with 2.15 something. This will be Meteor 3, but then we will finally be able to make this work on a Raspberry Pi or other ARM-based devices. And I think some of these watches are also ARM-based, right? I'm not familiar with this whole smartwatch business development stuff, but I think this was also a blocker for us. So here it is.
It opens up a whole new category of devices that it can be installed on.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. So I have my Raspberry Pi laying down there on top of this internet, and it's just waiting for getting used.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, this episode we're talking about trying to reduce your defects and so on. And one of the ways that you can make sure that you're encountering them or anticipating them, intercepting them early, is by making sure that you're doing some linting. And Meteor comes with ESLint support built in. And there is an article from Maxim Orlov. He has his 14 rules that you can use to write your asynchronous JavaScript code. And we've been talking about fibers and async await for a while also. So this is all very related. And he has some great advice about what you can put into your lint resource file, the .lintrc file that is part of the ESLint distribution. So you should probably take a look at this article. There's some really helpful tips and tricks that he has. He also not just mentions the directives that you would put in there, but he mentions also the reasons why and gives some sample code that demonstrates where you might be using await in a way that is not necessarily performant or necessary. So it gives you a little bit of a walkthrough about how you can actually take a look at your code as it stands today and make some changes. But it also mentions where and what directives you can use within your lintrc file to make capturing those errors something that happens much earlier. And if you're not really a fan of ESLint, there are some other alternatives to it that you could consider. One is QuickLint.js. The 3.0 version of it introduces TypeScript support, and it is a purely JavaScript linting tool that you can use in your code. And on top of that, there is another product called OXLint, which claims to be 50 to 100% faster, 100 times faster. I'm not 100%, 50 to 100 times faster than ESLint. And if speed is your thing and that's what you want, you might want to take a look into that one also, into that toolkit. As a matter of fact, there is a quote from Evan Yu who says that the performance is absolutely nuts when it's running against a Vue 3 code base. So if you want to take that as an endorsement and you want to give it a try for yourself, by all means, go ahead and do so. And when we're talking about speed, a lot of people would say, well, maybe we should be writing some of our code in Rust or rewriting some of our code in Rust, and that'll speed things up and make things faster. There is an article that had been written with regard to Rust-based JavaScript linters, and they do work pretty fast, but the problem is right now among them there is no support for TypeScript and TypeScript linting. So that is a drawback today with it. I don't know if there is any hope that we'll see TypeScript support in them in the future, but there you go. So if you want to anticipate early, you want to intercept early possible bugs that might be introduced into your code because you're not doing things a certain way. That's one way. And then of course, code conformity, using linters to kind of enforce whether or not you're using tabs or spaces, general rules about how your code should look, is kind of important, especially when you're working with a large team and you want to have a consistent code base so that it's easier to read, it's easier to maintain, etc. So that's what I've got there in terms of these linting tools. You guys have any insights on linting as a means of reducing defects in your code, or do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I have a very strong opinion, and because I'm always pro static analysis, because static analysis is, in my opinion, and many other people's opinion as well, the way to go before going into any runtime analysis or something. So it's just the outcome is so much higher compared to the effort put in. If you just compare it to writing tests, it's not. I don't want to say don't write tests. I just want to say the benefits of linters can be tremendous in terms of what you put in and what you get out, especially when you have an existing code base that wasn't linted before. That's the one thing. And the other thing I wanted to remember you all, Felipe was at our show and talked about the ESLint plugin for detecting parts of your code that still needs to be migrated towards Meteor 3.0. So this is also a clear advantage over, for example, what I showed in the past, where I just showed some runtime analysis, and the ESLint plugin is clearly advantage here, and I would definitely advise you to try it out and see what's your existing code base needs to be migrated.
And I think if I can build on that for a second, if you're interested in taking a look at these alternative linters because you're not happy with ESLint, one of the things that I would say with this current migration that we're doing is we do have this tool that is an ESLint tool that Felipe built. And so you'd miss out on the benefit of that, or you'd have to port it for whatever linter that you decide to use that was not ESLint. And By the way, I forgot to mention that there was this all-in-one solution called Rome, and I think
Yeah.
Storyteller has some opinions about wanting to try that out or something. So let me pass that on
Yes,
to him.
so I will be, as mentioned, I will be trying it's called Biome, which kind of port, you could say, of Rome, and kind of goes off because with linting, I don't just want, oh, hey, here's, not following the rule. I also want to make sure it reformats my code. It's standardized, so it's readable, all that stuff. And so for me, I see ESLint as just like only one puzzle and of much larger, or one piece of a puzzle, and of much larger things that I want to do, because I want to also have Meteor inside it. So that's, for example, why I'm using right now standard X in most of my projects, because I need to have some adjustments, specifically when it comes to semicolons, where I differ from the standard approach. So I will be looking, checking out Biome in one of my future streams, or maybe earlier. They make some, performance claims in regards to being faster and prettier and all that stuff, but everybody makes those claims. And so I will be checking that out in one of my March stream episodes and seeing how it goes, because I said, this is supposed to give us much more than just, linting rules and linting, but also making sure that you have, the proper spaces and everything else included. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in this case. I don't just want something to highlight me, hey, this is potential problem, or this is not how you are supposed to write this. I want the whole package, and I am really tired of constantly, because upgrades happen, I'm tired of constantly having to scramble and fix my ESLint and all the other things together when there's some major updates, especially breaking ones.
Yeah, this will come, right?
Oh yeah, this absolutely comes. So I prefer if I have like just one tool that I have to worry about, and they worry about all the other things. So that's, for example, why I like standard, because you have ESLint and ESLint kind of behind it as well there. It's multiple things together, so they worry about all the compatibility, all that stuff, and the only thing I do is I just define some additional ESLint rules to the standard ones, and I'm good to go.
But here's the thing. I think they will get in some trouble right now, because I'm also using standard, and I'm also watching a little bit the standard community, and they are still in discussion how to move on, because ESLint will drop the formatting options in their next major versions, and everybody should move to Prettier or some external code formatter. And that's exactly what I personally don't want. I don't want to have 10,000 tools again for each job. And at that point, something like Biome is very interesting to me as well, where you have everything, all batteries included, and you can just run these things without hassling on 10 tools just to get one job done.
So, Storyteller, as far as your IDE is concerned, do you use WebStorm?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
WebStorm, sometimes Visual Studio Code for little things, but mostly WebStorm, because I have a paid version, so going for that.
And with WebStorm, so I'm assuming that Biome has a plugin for WebStorm?
That would be one thing I'll be checking out, but for most part, the plugin is, I would say, just a additional integration in your editors. So let's see, we have Visual Studio Code, so IntelliJS they have, so that means they have that one.
All right, and you're going to be evaluating this live?
Yes, I'll just, as I do with my streams, I'll just start, okay, this is what I'm doing, and let's see how far we can get. Let's see what issues we encounter, and let's have some fun.
Brave man.
Or not.
Brave man. All right. Well, the reason I asked this is because, when I actually code, which is not very often, but when I code, I use VS Code. And for some of you, this is the place where we're going to get our interaction with our code and with any kind of helpers, especially linters, in terms of trying to figure out, if we're running into an error, getting auto-completion to help us figure out, what what methods and what properties might be available to us in whatever objects we're using as we're doing that. And there have been a couple of very recent improvements to Visual Studio that have come out, which you may know about, but we're highlighting them because they're kind of cool and very helpful. One is you get a heap snapshot now, a visual heap snapshot of your memory in VS Code. And that came out a little while back. I'm trying to remember whether or not it was the fall or earlier in the summer. I do know that back in earlier summer, back in August it was, there were some additional improvements to the JavaScript debugger that allowed for WebAssembly decompilation, WebAssembly module decompilation. And, that is something that was really, really quite unexpected to me that you would have that there. So here are two different things that are there. I would encourage people to go and read the release notes for the last quarter, because there have been a number of really cool things that have come out with new releases of VS Code. But these two specifically related to debugging, I wanted to bring up and share it with you guys. I don't know if you've actually used them yet, and if you have, please, post so in the comments. We would love to get some feedback from you guys as to what you thought about these features and whether or not they have improved your productivity or not. Okay, and I'm going to turn this back to you guys now and see if you've got any hot comments to make on this.
I'm not sure how. I'm not using Visual Studio Code, but I'm usually doing the classic way of attaching the Chrome debugger to the server, or like in the browser is already built in. And I mean, the Chrome dev tools, I can only speak for them. They are constantly evolving, and but I haven't seen that right now. But maybe this is already in there, because I didn't do a deep debugging session for that time, because usually these like heap snapshots is usually when you have performance things going on you want to debug, right? And or things where you just don't know where the source of all evil is coming from. Usually I'm rather the classic debugger step-by-step guy.
Right. You set your watches.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of that, even not too far back, and this is not, I would say still known, we had console, or the browser console had got some quite an interesting extension. So you can you don't just have console log and console dir, but you have, of course, error debug info. But you also have things like table, as you mentioned, trace, and also including also as Alim mentioned, watches, timers, and all these other things grouping. So it can be very powerful. I don't know.
We could do a whole episode on console, as a matter of fact, because it's just a very, very rich object now.
Especially on the server, right? Because I think for most people, the browser debugging, the browser is a no-brainer, but the server part, that's a little bit harder for many people to do, as you have to set it up much differently. You can't just say debugger like you do in your code in the browser, and then it just opens automatically. You have to first add some of your environment variables and set things up and enable debugging and all that stuff, and then you have to have another external debugger running. But we can cover that.
Yeah, I would also like to mention that you can also style in console, which is not that often used. But for example, here I just picked up my web page where we have stop, don't do this, and the don't put anything in the console. But it kind of got me thinking that maybe in the future I would like to try to build a website that you mostly can go into the console to operate, just for the fun. Because you can do in Meteor, you can already through console get of course the entire Meteor object and play with it. So I think there is a pretty nice I would say opportunity that we can work with.
Yeah. So if you like to see an episode in the future where we just go deep into the console and the Meteor objects that are available in your console, then please leave a comment or just let us know, so we know that we're producing content that actually our beloved Meteor community loves back. And coming from there, I want to talk about a bug that is not actually a technical bug, but rather an organizational bug. So what happens if you have a bug in your organization? Then things happen that actually affect everyone. And the latest bug that happened coming from Apple is that they simply defected in being friendly towards web standards and just opted out on supporting PWAs as a consequence of some feud with the EU. And this is obviously a bug that we can't fix by our tools. We can't run the debugger and make this working again so easily. So everybody who was investing in PWAs as their main deliverable is getting some users less now. So of course somebody claims that it might not be that big of an issue because it's just a web view rendered and you can just switch people to the browser or something like this. But in the end, this is still a technical defect. You can't run the PWA anymore on the iOS devices coming with the next version. And I don't know what to say anymore. Apple is recently doing very Oracle-like things, and they're not making developers happy right now. I think this is actually, we talked about PWA being so full of potentials, and everybody should take a look at it, and it's great. And now Apple comes around the corner and say like, yeah, but we don't support it. What is going on here?
Yeah, this as you said, this is I would say organizational bug, and this is where when you allow, I don't know what department, if it's legal or maybe the financial, I would say combination of both, because Apple is pretty much known, especially as we've covered, was it last episode or maybe before that, about their payments and how they kind of if you try to go outside of their walled garden, how they will do everything they can to make you as much miserable and problematic as possible. And this is one of my biggest gripe with Apple, that they're just like doing these things and they're doing it again and again and again. It's like stuff like this is like what a small child does when they don't get the ice cream. And it's very annoying. It's for me, this is just like another reason why I don't develop for Apple, because you have to be completely in their walled garden, and they can change. There's just like, how to put it nicely, doesn't seem like to be any loyalty to anything, or it just seems like that people who have no, say, technical background or are like involved in the community, it's just like seems like just some higher up lawyer with the finance people come together, just like a table, or we won't just if we allow this, we won't make 1 billion less from our like 100 billion we make a year or something like that. So it's in the end, it's just, at least to me, it always ends up like looking just too greedy. And Apple if there is a company that can afford to be a bit less greedy, it's Apple, Google, and these big ones. So them doing this, just like, and then it's like it's also very saddening because recently on the Syntax podcast they were very much could say applauded. Also one of their was it Safari? For Safari being like really forward in developing a lot of the web standards, and now they make this. So
I mean, in the end, that's the whole idea. What I think, or why I think this is a bad move is it's already a negative position towards web standards, and usually they were the ones in the past. So, which is why I'm so mad at this topic. Is rather this, they were the ones in the past promoting that technologies like Flash, they're not web standards, so we banned them from our OS, and now they come with a move. With some very weird or like opaque arguments against these web app stuff. And I just want to make sure that in the future we can support most of the web standards technologies, and yeah, this is why I personally have an interest in that, and we will follow this definitely, and we'll also keep you informed about what's the development on that side. And yeah, as the comment from Per Berglund is right now, it may be not as clear cut as you make it seem. That's right, but from my end, I'm pretty convinced there will be two ways. Either they will go full all in with this, or they will just see a big leap back because of this action and will step back from it. I will not. I think there will not be a what's the name of it? There will be no golden in between decision on that. I think so.
yes, to kind of get more, little bit more here, this is kind of result where they have a feud with EU because EU has kind of gotten in on them about their monopolistic behaviors, and not the nice one, monopolistic behaviors. Another thing here which really makes they say, oh, this is going to only affect a few users. Then why? Because the other thing, if I remember correctly, it's only we have to remove the home screen of web apps feature in the EU. So it's not just like it's just only in the EU, and they are saying it's going to affect only a few small users. And again, they are argumenting
with the DMA. Yeah, that's
well,
what they say.
Not just that, but also like with the same stuff as last time. Oh, this is for the user security.
Yeah, that's coming back to that topic, right?
And it's just like to be compliant with DMA. I would like to kind of hear more about why this is an issue, because it just doesn't make too much sense to me. And especially with company with your resources, that to fix it, to make it compliant, shouldn't be that big of a problem. But at the same time, yes, it's one of the issues, and I would say one of the issues why EU is not competitive when it comes to the technology sector worldwide is because the EU just has to go in and regulate and annoy everybody constantly about something. It's not just the EU; it's all the EU states, because just sadly the mentality. So it's not just Apple, but the other things as well.
So if you want to stay informed on that topic, then let us please know. We will definitely cover things like these in the long run and try to get back at them when the time is right. We would also like to ask you to like the video if you haven't, because with that you will also help the YouTube algorithm to suggest this video to others, and maybe we can grow our community once more on channels like on YouTube, get new people into the Meteor community. And this is can be also done by your help by liking that video. And from here, we are done with the news, and also want to get into one more of a useful resource, because it's all about debugging. And there are actually some quite useful resources for Meteor out there. I mean, many of you know the guide and the documents, but sometimes there are also videos and online video tutorials on YouTube, and one of them is the stages of debugging from the Meteor impact from 2020. So you have to take it with a grain of salt here, because it might become not so closely up to date anymore once we are with Meteor 3, because of course some of the fibers related things are outdated then. But all in one, this is a video I can definitely suggest you if you want to get into debugging beyond using console. We already talked about that, and that you can do more things than only console. And also when you're struggling with the server side, because that's not as trivial as the browser. And it's also covering Cordova plugins. And from what I'm observing in the forums, I see lots of people having trouble with Cordova plugins, and that's a good catch for you if you also have troubles with them, how to debug issues with Cordova plugins. And Bart Sturm, who explains this, he actually built a real product with Meteor, so he knows what he's talking about. And he has his product in production, the Tutormundi, and so this is it's built on real world use cases, and so this is something you might check out if you have an hour to look into debugging.
All right. When it comes to useful resources, we are back with calls for papers for conferences. The earliest that we know of is for JS conference in Dublin, Ireland, and the calls for papers, which means when you can submit, talks and all that. The deadline for it is 29th of February. So this one looks like a really nice conference. Following that, we have for JS Nation and React Summit. That is, deadline for that is the 3rd of March. This is probably like one of the biggest conference for JavaScript and all that stuff. And you'll be in good company if you manage to get there. So that's again
big ones.
3rd of March. And let's see, what else do we have here? Then we have DevOpsCon. If you are, that one is in Berlin. Deadline for that is April 1st. And so also, I would say the early bird registration for that ending soon. The conference itself is in June. So if you are into DevOps, and then UTAC JS, which is a smaller but still notable conference in, as you guessed it, America, UTAC. So that one is September 15, but deadline for talks, or as it's called, calls for papers, is the 3rd of April. So that's
so
the calls for papers.
What we're trying to do is just encourage as many people as possible to get papers in. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to make a submission for the Utah JS conference on a reviving of Meteor, right? And talking about Meteor 3.0. So we'll see what they think about that as a potential topic. I don't know. It's you just throw something out there and see what sticks, right? Hopefully, again, part of the whole strategy on this is not only just doing this for your own personal development and improvement. I'm looking at the wrong camera before. But also, the more we can get submissions out, the more likely it is that folks are going to say, hey, wait a minute, Meteor's still here. There's still something going on. I want to mention something that I ran into yesterday as I was doing some research for this episode, which is I looked at the 2023 Stack Overflow report on the technologies that are being used. And we don't have to go to it right now. We'll probably cover it another day. But this was just something that was really startling when they talked about web frameworks, web platforms, and so on that were there. Meteor was conspicuously missing. And you still had things like Laravel on it. You still had things like PHP, right, that were there. And it was really shocking to me that Meteor was not at all represented. It was as if we just don't exist at all. So I think we need to make sure that there are people need to be aware that Meteor still is a viable platform for building applications, and so that new people can find it. If older people tried it, they don't like it, that's great. I mean, you don't have to enjoy all flavors, right? I prefer vanilla and rum raisin. I really could care less about chocolate or any of those other flavors of ice cream. So, each to their own. But I like knowing that those flavors are there, because if my daughter and my wife want to go get ice cream with me, it's nice to know that there are these others out there. And it's the same thing. I think people should know that Meteor is out there. So maybe just a really bad analogy in terms of my setup, but that's what I got. All right.
But also, it's another good excuse for you to get to Salt Lake City. Let's be honest here.
Oh yeah, I've been dying for years to get out to Salt Lake City. Yeah. All right. Well, I've got just some reminders for you for your personal professional development. It's really great to go to. Here we go. Share screen. It's really great to go to conferences, and let me. You know what? This is going to be a little bit of a challenge, because I have a keynote slide which I can't show. I didn't realize I can't show it here, but it's a keynote slide that's got a list of different JavaScript conferences that are available between now and the end of March. And so let me just highlight a few of them for you. There is one in Amsterdam, Netherlands, we've talked about before, that's coming up on February 28th. It is JS World Conference 2024. We've mentioned the one in Florence, Italy, the Open Source Day 2024. That's on March 7th. If we go back to Salt Lake City, for all you Angular folks, there's NGConf 2024. That's happening on March 18th to 21st. And then there is the FastDev Krakow Conference, JavaScript Conference 2024 in Krakow, Poland, March 22nd. There are a bunch of other ones. As we progress in this program, I'm going to see whether or not I can get that slide, and then we can throw it up just for a moment so that you can see all the other conferences that are happening between now and the end of March that you might be interested in attending. But I don't want to hold things up for this. So those are a handful of them. There's several others: Open Source Day Frontrunners, Wasm.io, JavaScript Days in Munich, Germany, and Web Dev Days, which is online. So let me get those up for you guys and see if I can export it and bring it back in as a visual resource. And until then, I'm going to pass this on. You guys have any, are you attending any of these conferences that you know of?
Let's see. I have
Jan and Jan brothers?
Not the one of these that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I start to think about, actually, no, I won't be able to make the one in Krakow, because that's at that time I'm in America. So
right.
I will be attending there a writers conference and then an anime conference or a convention where I'll have 3 talks. So sadly not. It's just
yeah.
Küster, are you atrocious?
I'm attending usually science conferences, and so it's also, for me, it's a little bit about financing. So because I can only get conferences. I mean, if I submit a paper to one of these conferences and it's relevant to my work somehow, I would get finance, and then it would be possible. But it's hardly. If there is a conference that is international and it's maybe not in Europe, I mean, the ones in Amsterdam, that would still be possible somehow, because the costs are overseeable. But if it's in the US, Munich would also be possible. But I don't have anything to submit right now in these areas, and
Well,
but
these conferences are happening next month, so I think the submission time is over for these. These are just the ones that you might attend
yeah,
for professional development. So, but
yeah.
you're not planning on traveling for any of these at this point. People are not going to run into either of you guys
Maybe
at
in
one
the
of the
future, when there is some dime rolling beyond my usual work, then I may be
Yeah.
available to attend some conferences. Yes.
Sure. But you won't be you guys. I think the point I'm trying to make here is who among us are attending any of these conferences in March? I'm not attending any of them, so I was just kind of curious as to whether or not any of you guys had already made plans to attend, and if not, then there's if anybody in the audience is going, don't look for us because we won't be there. But we would like to hear about them. Perhaps if you come back and you thought it was very useful and you'd like to share your experience on the show of what you saw and what you heard and what was useful. We'd love to hear that from you, and I think that could be a great way of cross pollinating information for those of us who were not able to attend.
Or if you are able to and or have the options, send us let us know and send us some free tickets, and then it might be easier for us to go.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, it'd be very expensive to get to Europe, right? Because the free ticket is one thing, but we still have to get a plane ticket and a place to stay.
Well, that's the thing, Alim. If you get the free ticket for a conference in Europe, you send it to
I can
us.
pass it to you guys.
And if we get something for America, we'll pass it to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something we can all do in the community, right?
Pass around tickets. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And
I have one important statement to make. So anybody who is watching this video and wants to get updated in time when the next episode comes out and you have not subscribed yet, then please do it, and then you will definitely get informed when the next episode is out, especially on occasions like today, when it's postponed by a day and you're watching on Friday and think like, why nothing is happening, and then you just automatically get notified next time.
Right. That is exactly true. Okay, so I think we're going to get back to the thing that we promised earlier that Storyteller teased us about with the build system.
Yep.
Yes. So this is a mix of a discussion and understanding of Meteor. As I mentioned before, Natural Code owner of the Meteor team has announced that there will be efforts to modernize the Meteor's bundle, because right now Meteor has its own system of bundling and managing stuff using primarily Babel under the hood. And of course, back in the days when Meteor was built, I think Babel was pretty much the only viable option out there to build anything on. But it has been a long time since then, and it's now time to look on other potentials. But primarily because there have been some quiet ongoing issues with it that let's not get ourselves need to be addressed, and still certain things that we lack. For me specifically, that big one that's missing is the ESM support, which I need for some of my packages I need to use. So that's a big one. And of course, as before mentioned, tree shaking. And for Natural, he has been primarily looking at Webpack and Vite. Webpack specifically because he has actually built previously integration with that, and Vite because of we pretty much have another integration with Vite, which is maintained by Acrium and the other people from the Vue community, Meteor Vue community. So that's the idea is to adopt probably one of these solution integrated, make sure that we have a good backward compatibility and lose as less as possible of Meteor specific functions that we currently enjoy. And we have here, as I'm quickly scrolling through this, you can see we have quite a lively discussions. Some of the say long-standing members like Abigail Watson. Hi, Abigail, if you're watching, are giving comments. So that's a lot of interesting thing. And of course, as I scroll down here, we have Acrium himself here as well, giving some feedback. And it's a very lively conversation.
Yeah.
And now then I bring it up to everybody else here to discuss and talk, and let us know in the comments what do you think about this. And speaking of which, we already have a comment. If we can click at the same time.
I keep on clicking, and you keep on clicking at the same time. So, yeah,
the usual. So we have starting with Per. Go ahead, Alim.
No, I was going to just say that. So Per has a comment that he believes that Refi is actually responsible for more of the build functionality in Meteor. And I don't know enough.
It's one part. Refi, from my understanding, and I'm not that deep to fully comprehend this. We'll probably get best to get Zoran and Natural will probably get Natural as well once we have more of a better solution. But Refi enables you could say all the goodies that make Meteor unique compared to other things. So that's like the imports, inline imports, and similar stuff. But still, Babel is the one that does all the compiling and meshing things together. Refi is, from my understanding, just an extension and works on that. So,
I mean, what do you guys know about? I'm sorry. What do you guys know about ES build and its maturity, and whether or not it might be a useful alternative?
Yeah, it would be. The question is what it's offering beyond its speed advantage, and that's the key thing here, right? It's about the features. I mean, it provides many of the features that we need, like tree shaking and all that stuff. It has lots of that stuff around, and that's the same with Vite. It also brings lots of features, and it's when you're having Vue, you need Vite to make Vue 3 projects working, right? And but what I just want, I just want, before we move into these in details, I just want to point one thing out, and that is you might miss some features, but this Refi thing is actually it was, when it came out, it was a game changer. You had no configuration requirements, no complex config files and path things to set up, and you could just run import, inline import within functions. You could use require at the same time and import at the same time. You could use dynamic imports. Everything was just working. And I mean, that was ahead of its time, far by, especially when we talk about concepts like time to market. I'm developing something and I don't want to hassle around with configurations, and still can do lots of things and support importing NPM packages, besides this ESM situation right now. So I can't import Chai version 5 now, but beyond that, I would still propose that there must be the option to still have the current bundling system being available as well. That's
Are you saying that Vite or other alternatives don't have these same supports for like the multiple types of imports?
I think there will be issues. I haven't tried it on every occasion, but I think there might be issues, for example, when you don't place your imports on the top level. So that's
something that's discussed there, that we might lose some of that, some of those options that pretty much what Refi adds. to Meteor will probably lose that. But Nacho mentioned there, also primarily with backward compatibility. If you hide that, at least in his approach that he has done in a package, then you should packages will be built using the old build system. Then it shouldn't be a problem to have it there. This would primarily impact, you could say, the application. And also kind of good point, just because we upgrade, the tooling and it's, from what we have to Beat or something else, doesn't mean that will magically fix all the problems. It just means that we'll have the same problems as everybody else, and we have much everybody else helping us trying to fix those problems. And we won't be kind of living on an island with our build tool. So that's
it's kind of funny. We have this episode that we're doing now about dealing with defects, and we have in the chat right now, and I'm a little apprehensive about like posting it because this isn't really intended for a live debugging session. But Simon has a problem right now with one of his applications where he's done a reset, and then he is trying to do an update, and he's running into some kind of an error. Do you guys want me to post this? Because I was just writing to him suggesting that he post the error that he's getting back over to the forums and the Slack so that others could help. In the meantime,
I think it would be better there. Alim, because I want to also kind of go back to the ES build point that you made, and that's like another thing that we also discuss with the debugging tools and linter tools. Just because it's faster, it doesn't mean it's better, because there are other things. And
totally agree.
I think what we really want from our, let's say, build tool is that it's fast on startup and then for hot module reloading. So that's for our development. When it takes a bit longer, I would say to pack up and send to the server. I would say that's not a big problem, because what I usually do, I just start the script and then go take a bathroom break or make myself a tea. Because there's also then the upload speed. That's that, and here it's again, what are you comparing the speeds to? If you just do like the strip, like the bare bones, everything, it usually is pretty fast, no matter what you choose. And here it's like rollup 4 plus Tensor, compared to just basic ES build. I don't know what the configuration is. A lot of, you can always doctor these as you need to. So it's not that, but I definitely give them that they are fast, but they're also new, so they might not have all the necessary thing, and that's why people are looking at Wheat and other things, because it has all the other rich features integrated. But if you have experience, for example, with ESBuild or something like that, go into the forums, and let us know here in the thread. It will probably be pretty top, given that it's quite a hot topic. That we should definitely look, for example, at ESBuild as well on those things. But I would personally maybe look more towards Wheat, just because of Vue. You pretty much need it for Vue and all the other ones, and it works with, as far as I know, everything else as well without a problem. So I would just go with it. So we have only one tool, because we don't really want to go and support all the available tools. It's just going to become a mess, especially when it comes to maintenance. So that's that. And a very interesting comment that I want to comment on from Per in regards to Ratify, that there's only probably Zodern, who knows very much about it, which is true. But also Ben Newman, who originally wrote it, would be another person, but he is just fully focused on Apollo. So
I think Felipe has a pretty deep understanding of it also. I don't want to discount him at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's one thing I'd like to add, and that was I already opened an issue with that, or I made a discussion about that when Felipe was CEO, so it's already some time ago. But at the time that it was clear Meteor will have to shift to 3.0, and also when we wanted to modernize Blaze, I wrote that it's super important to have an architectural understanding. We need some kind of architectural documentation of how Meteor is actually built. What are the components? How is this interplay? Because otherwise, you spend hours and hours to understand how these things works just by having these micro tasks following up, and then get your own architectural understanding. But I think it should be the other way around. You should have a overview of the architecture and can zoom in. I don't know if any one of you knows the C4 model. That's actually a very it's a very straightforward approach to architecture. I really like it. You can just Google it, C4 model. You will find lots of resources there. It's very great. And what I think Meteor needs in order to have more community engagement of that's the website. If Meteor, so it's system context, container context, component context, code context. These are the 4 levels or the 4 layers of code, and it's usually you see these kinds of things, and then he tries to show you as a comparison with the map of what's the system context. You see here Europe as a continent, you see multiple countries, so this is your system context. Then you have container context, so you're somehow on a current specific part in this map, like an island. And then there is, if you could zoom in on the island, and you see its streets, its cities, and so on. And on the code base, you're on the street. Actually, it's interesting. And if we want to have the community getting involved in this effort, then it needs to be something like this, because nobody who's working full-time and who having a family or having other duties in their free time will be able to spend hours and hours and hours just to get the idea of how these things work, right? So that's my point, very big point here for community engagement.
This has been actually a weakness in the documentation for a very long time. Is we have lots of nicely worded documents, but system diagrams, interaction diagrams, things like that are lacking. One of the things I was hoping that we would get from some of our discussion about how the build system works in the past, and I've talked to a number of different people, is I would like to see a workflow diagram, so to speak, where we start with the code, right, and then you have a process pipeline where things are happening as the build happens, right? Things get injected, tests get executed, and so on. And I would like to be able to visualize that along some kind of a diagram that shows this. And I think that would make understanding what's going on when we take our code base, right? And how does it figure out, does it just pack together all of the source code as one file, right? Just string it all together and then process it. How does it figure out where things are? How does it do the inclusions, in a diagrammatical way? Because I think that communicates a huge amount of information very, very well. And what's this book that's being showed? Because I have a small view right now, so let me try to.
I just want to summarize that.
That's okay. Yes.
That would require a third category of documentation besides docs and guides. There might be an architecture documentation as a totally own existing thing, like really showing the high level internals of what actually Meteor is composed of.
Yeah, it would be really nice to see these. We used to draw these things called pancake diagrams. I don't know if you know the term, but it's or layer cake diagrams, right? Where you show the base layer of the the software, right? The objects, and then how different things stack onto it, and how they interact with the underlying system altogether. We don't have those. The other things that I think that will be very, very helpful are diagrams that very easily communicate deployments and how you set up and have Meteor applications interact with other components, and some best practice diagrams in that sense, especially for large scale deployments where people are constantly saying Meteor doesn't scale. Well, you can make software scale even at, when they have limitations if you architect your system properly. So, I think those are some of the things that would really help others have a deeper understanding, and also understand the limitations at the same time. Because when you have these diagrams, they explain to some degree like what an ideal situation is, but you can also through these diagrams, infer what limitations in the system are, or in the platform itself. So I think, I think to your point, I think it would be really great to have, have some diagrams.
Not like this one, but maybe really something structured like the C4 approach or something like this.
It's not a bad approach. Yeah, I mean, I don't know this as. I'm glad that you shared this because I don't know this. This is new to me, and but in some cases, like it's not entirely new. Like the different levels of them have been around in discussion forever. I just don't know this model, and I think this is a very good model. From what I've seen so far here.
Yeah. Coming back to the bundler discussion.
Yes, let's bring it back.
Sorry, it was me who was drifting away with the C4 model architecture. Getting back to the bundler discussion, what I think here is I know that, or when you read the forum post, you see that everyone mostly agrees that it's time to get a modern bundler in. And I think this is what we, for Meteor, need overall to be open to this overall ecosystem. There were so many things that emerged and that are people used to right now. And so I think, or this is a little bit part of my prediction again. So Meteor will definitely open up to this whole ecosystem. That's the only move we and Meteor software, but also we as a community can make in order to keep this alive and aligned with the overall JS ecosystem.
Well, I think one of the things that needs to happen is not to so tightly couple, a build tool to the system, because as we've seen, things develop outside of Meteor, and they have their own pace, and sometimes they have their own priorities, right? So we are seeing this with the React environment right now, where there seems to be more tightly coupled to the things that are happening at Next, at the expense of, other systems. I think we have. I think Felipe had a couple of open issues that he posted with React about some changes that they're considering or they're doing, and the impact it's having on Meteor, and it's kind of being ignored, right? So it's
just try to run a Jest test. Try to run a Jest test with your Meteor app. You will get surprised that it's simply not possible.
So I think when the change happens, because it sounds like a change will happen, whether it's Vite or something else, we need to have good interface boundaries, so that if Vite goes off in a certain direction at some point, and we have to think about putting in a different build tool, then the amount of rework will be minimized, because it can happen. The reason, by the way, I threw in ES Build Storyteller was not so much that I think ES Build is better or it's got anything. It really was to sort of prompt the discussion about the evaluation criteria for what is involved or what is considered for bringing in a build tool or a set of build tools for discussion. What do we need to consider beyond speed, right? And so on. So that was really where I was going with that. I wasn't really suggesting that ES build is necessarily superior because it's fast, but how are we deciding what are going to be the runoff candidates besides our familiarity with it, and so on. So I think having a strong, robust development team, right, and interest in whatever tool gets picked up is really important, because if it's one of those things where they disappear after a while because there is no interest and they're not going to go forward with it, that doesn't bode well for us either, right? So I think that is one of the criteria that comes into play. And Vite certainly has a huge following, a lot of interest, and folks that are working very deeply on it right now. So, what other criteria are there besides those, right?
So I think this also is, when will this come about? I think this might be, either somewhere in Meteor 3 live, or potentially, given how big of a change this is going to be, it might be Meteor 4. And in the meantime, once we get on Meteor 3, there's also new major version of Babel being developed as of right now. So I think we'll probably get at least that, depending on what comes sooner, the Meteor 4 or new major version of Babel. So that also will be something to consider.
I'm going to put Kelly's note back up here again. He has an observation. He thinks that the issue will be trying to shoehorn the needs of Meteor build into these other tools. And I think almost any tool that we get, right, will not do 100%. You'll probably have to wrap some Meteor-specific stuff around those. I don't know whether or not that's doable or not. I guess that's for Nacho and others to spend their time and figure out. But what is your take on? Should I put Kelly's note back up if you guys want to comment on it?
Yeah. I think that will really depend on how much we can then get new people into Meteor, because of course, if Meteor becomes more popular, then the other tools will take more notice. If Meteor will remain obscure, then we'll have to do it on our own, unless it's something that those tools wants to do by themselves as well. Because then it's why should we care about this niche community and to do extra work for them? But if we could, if we could then have the changes we make go upstream, then that's a big win, and not just for us, but for everybody else as well who needs those functions.
Good point. All right, guys. I think we are. We've spent a huge amount of time on this. I'm looking at our list here of where we need to be, and I'm going to skip past one of these items, get over to our reminders, and our friend Jan Küster has decided that we should get involved in another aspect of YouTube videos. And Küster, what do we do this week?
We uploaded our first short video. Yay! Yeah. So we will follow you on every step now with many of our shorts. No, of course we're not posting these BS trash stuff, but actually insightful things.
Yet.
And
yet. We might.
Yeah, and so we will come up with more shorts, especially not only on an existing content, because as you can see, this is actually an existing video from one of our former episode with Felipe, talking about that Meteor is not magic, it's just Node, it's just comfort tools around many Node functions. But we will also try to make new shorts about functionality that hasn't been covered so far. I don't want to get into the details, that would be spoiler or like promising things that we can't deliver, that would be not so good. But in the end, this is something we want to engage a little bit more. See, maybe it gets also traction to people outside of the Meteor community, raising awareness and also raising interest in what we're offering, of course. Because in the end, if you don't know it exists, then you can't really interact with it, right?
Absolutely. And folks, one of the other things that we probably didn't make clear is all of our episodes are remixable. So you can go to each of our episodes if you have a YouTube account, and you can create shorts right out of them too, if you want to. So, that might be a little dangerous because I make a lot of mistakes and so on. So you could probably just do a whole bunch of remixes of me just talking on my tongue, right? And putting my foot in my mouth and doing all sorts of nonsense. But there is useful bits of content. We're not going to be able to do all of them. And if you pop in and you see something that you think is worthwhile, that sort of encapsulates a thought or an idea that you feel that people should really understand about Meteor, and you want to make a short out of it, go to town. I mean, all of our 26 episodes are out there. And actually, we have, in addition to our 26 episodes, we have 3 others, right? We have 2 deep dives and a hot topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 29, videos out there that if you were to go in and you were to find something useful and do that, that's awesome. Let us know about it if you do it. I mean, we will kind of find out, because I think if you remix, then something will show up in our dashboard. But it'll be great if you do it, and we can give you a shout out for it. And if you want to talk about it, we'd be happy to have you on the show, where you could kind of like explain why you chose the piece that you did in order to make your short. So yeah, Küster has like some great ideas that he'd like to make into shorts. These are going to be bite-sized takeaways that really try to encapsulate some very, very specific idea or concept. And if you get inspired by that and you want to do some of your own, let us know. We will let you post them on our channel if that's where you want to go with it. So this is the MeteorJS community channel. One of the things is the 3 of us are doing this right now because we're the only ones. But if any of you want to add to it, just let us know, and then we'll if the content is appropriate, we will put it up there. If you're in a swimsuit or you have somebody else in a swimsuit, it might not be appropriate. But let's not go down that path.
I just want to say, Alim here. Hello, Meteor out of context. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I could see that being a clip right now that, as a short, I'm not sure would go over very well, Or maybe it might attract people and say, what are these guys talking about? What's going on here? It sounds like they're having a party. So, so there is that. What I would like to also remind you guys is we do have those 2 deep dives that we did. The first one was a bit of a backgrounder on Meteor. The second one was on the Meteor package system. And, we have do you have the link for the, or you could just show them the playlist for that? There is a playlist for deep dives.
Yes.
If you go to the YouTube homepage for our channel, which is youtube.com/MeteorJS community, one word, it'll take you here, and then it'll give you the videos that are recent, things that they will assemble for you specifically that YouTube thinks that is useful to you. And then we also have our playlists, and among them is our deep dive playlist. So if you go back to home, Storyteller, just to the leftmost item, yes, over there, and then you just scroll down, right? It shows you, first of all, what's going on right now, past live streams, and then you have the deep dives down there that you can pop into and take a look. So the episode on packages is really good, as is the first one that was done, which is a backgrounder on Meteor itself. So if you're interested in learning more, I would say those work. And if you have something to add and you'd like to be part of the discussion, we would love to hear from you. Please post your thoughts in the comments below on this episode. If you have some thoughts about this episode, or if you have thoughts about what we should be doing in the future, we read them. and we respond to them, and we also talk about them on the show. And finally, speaking of which, I mentioned, I believe, a moment back, sponsorships. Open source is built on the hard work of individuals that volunteer their time and effort. As I say, sometimes it's on their time and on their dime. And one of the ways that you can demonstrate your support for the folks that are building the software that you enjoy, that you use, that you benefit from, is to sponsor their efforts. In our case, Beyond Brothers both have GitHub sponsorship pages, and you can find them at, do we have them? Someplace here. There you go. So we're showing Jan Küster's sponsorship page over at GitHub right now, and Storyteller also has his over there. So if you'd like to let them know that they should be drinking a lot more coffee to stay up and do more work, then, give them a sponsorship. And I'm sure they would appreciate it. And with that, unless there is something to add, guys?
Nope.
I'm going to give us all the rest of our Saturdays back. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks a lot for being here.
Have a nice weekend.
Nice weekend.